What's up, you guys? K1GMM here. So, we're heading down another rabbit hole. I need something to do. I'm bored. And I figured this would be something this is something completely new to me. And it takes a different approach. At least I'm going to approach it a different way. So, I've been working a little bit of AM again. I said I'd probably never do it, but I'm very, very picky and choosy. Hey, Kevin. The bastion of audiophiles. What's up, Kevin? What is that, N8KA? Yeah, I wasn't going to do this. It's late. I'm usually in bed by now, but what the heck? And this is going to be kind of short. And so, if you guys saw the video that went up earlier today, I was working Jerry down in Florida on 10 meter AM. And I got thinking about how you guys know how I approach all this audio garbage. There was such a tremendous emphasis on ESSB and voodoo and stuff like that. Well, in my view, okay, AM is more of a pure I feel like I need to approach the AM audio side, the modulation side, from more of a purist standpoint, right? So, as you guys know, I struggle. Hey, Brent, geez, I hope you're doing well. I struggle with getting the bottom end out of my audio because, like I've said before, my voice is a baritone. I have a low voice, and there's not a lot in my voice in that presence area. The 500 hertz to let's say 1.6 kilohertz area, right? There's not a lot of that mid-range, upper mid-range tonality in my voice. So I kind of struggle with that. So it's got its place. But in my view, the way I want to sound on AM, well, let me just say, I don't even know what I want to sound like on AM, right? So what I did is I scanned around. This was a little earlier, maybe a couple hours ago, on down in the AM broadcast area, down around 1.5 megs, somewhere in there. Can't remember exactly, but you'll see it. And I wanted to find a station that, in my memory, represented like a man talking, and I wanted to listen to the audio, and I wanted to analyze the audio on a spectrum analyzer to see where everything was sitting, right? And I went through a bunch of AM stations, and I couldn't really decide. I'm like, that's okay. Maybe I could use that as a reference. I went, no. And I found one, and right next to that station, up above, maybe 10 or 12 kilohertz, was another AM station. And it sounded different, very different. It sounded great. But it had, to my ear, I can't even fault it because it sounded awesome, but it actually sounded different. So what I stumbled upon is I thought there was a pretty much standard, tried and true type of audio that you're going to hear on AM. I'm talking about AM broadcast, right? They have usually unlimited funds for equipment, systems for setting up their audio. But it sounded so radically different. I didn't grab that clip because it's not where I wanted to go. But it had it was very full, but it had a tremendous amount of energy up in that like 3 kilohertz area, right? Like a lot. from like, let's say 800 to 3 kilohertz. It almost had like this garish quality to it, but it sounded amazing. It sounded really good. And we've all heard AM, right? I grew up listening to AM broadcast. And those of us who are older, I'm 59. I heard these stations and I went, aha, I remember that. So how do I bring that into ham radio HF operations on AM? How do I emulate that? So that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. So I'm probably deaf, Paul. That's why I use a spectrum analyzer. What's up, Dan? I always use a spectrum analyzer when I'm analyzing stuff. But the catch is you have to use a spectrum analyzer on the RF, on the receive of being what's being spit out of the radio, because this radio does alter it. What you guys are hearing right now is not what's coming out of the radio. So you can't go by that. You can't just kick the monitor on and say, oh yeah, well that sounds good, because it's not going to sound like that on the receiving end. I can tell you with the utmost certainty it will not. So anyways, I grabbed this clip and it has a very smooth sound to it. And what I noticed is I had so much energy. So I got thinking, Jerry played a clip back for me, which I don't like clips when people play back clips, because it's third person. It's going over the air twice, and propagation does really weird stuff. It does. Anybody who's been on HF knows when they hear phase shifting going on. Happens all the time, and it has to do with propagation. Could be antenna polarization in combination with propagation, how the wave is shifting and flipping and changing. Well, it's done that once. Now it's coming back to me, so it's doing it again. So that's why I don't pay too much attention to someone who plays back audio. I don't pay any attention to it, actually. But what didn't lie was I heard a lot of bottom end. It's too much. And you don't hear that on AM broadcast. So, yeah, this is the rabbit hole. So what I'm starting to do is starting to build actually an AM broadcast quality AM profile. It is not ESSB. It is not Voodoo. Of course, it's not ESSB. That's single sideband, right? So there are two sidebands, an AM, upper and lower. And it works different. So here's the catch. How could I or anybody else set up a profile with the limited equipment that I have that would be as good or equal to or close to what I hear on some of the best AM broadcast stations? Good question, right? The reason why I mentioned the other station that was in there that was just above is because a lot of us talk about audio being subjective. I honestly didn't know that was the case in AM, but it is. It is. That station sounded so different. I should have grabbed the clip. I may in the future because I know where it is. This was iHeartRadio, the clip that I grabbed, which I've listened to before on AM. And the station above that sounded awesome, but just very different. And it was kind of out of the norm. You kind of see what I'm saying? Which led me to believe that, okay, their audio engineer is obviously setting their audio up slightly different than what you'd say, let's say the industry standard is, because it jumped out at me. I went, whoa. Sounds really good, but it was not what I would call industry standard. Do I know what industry standard is? No, I don't. All I know is what my ear tells me, and I can go through 100 AM broadcast stations, and none of them sounded like that. Is it necessarily bad? No, because it sounded flippin' awesome. Cracking audio. But it's kind of not where I want to go. You know what I'm saying? It's too harsh, too brittle. AM should have that nice smoothness to it, right? So, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that clip. Who else is in here? There's John. How you doing, buddy? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that clip, and I will show the analysis of it. All right. So this was captured on the sun with no external processing whatsoever. This is just raw on the sun on sequential AM on SAM. I think that's where I had it. I'll have to look. I'm pretty sure. So let me get over here. I'll pop the clip on. Let me mute this. I believe this is the clip. Yep. Oh, shoot. Okay, so what you're going to hear on this clip, let me get over to the other screen. What you're going to hear is some mixing that's going on, some bleed over from an adjacent station down below. You're going to hear the top end. That's right, we're going to release the Kraken. So kind of ignore that. But the main thing I wanted to present was, if you look at how they set their audio up, right? And if you look at the spectrum analysis of the audio, pay very close attention to the evenness, but mostly how much bottom end they have sub 100 hertz. All right, this is key. This is what kind of caught me. So let me go ahead and roll this. I'll unmute it. I'm going to shut up for a second. We'll just listen to it for a minute or so.
It's open 6 days a week, and people come in and can purchase right there. If you
So
don't,
that must be a big deal around holidays, right?
Yeah.
People come in the morning, they want to get their bread nice and fresh.
Absolutely.
Wow. What do you think your dad would think about you walking around in red shoes and matching red glasses?
He would like it. My dad, if you remember him, was very low key, very unassuming. Unlike me, he was just a low key, quiet guy. Thought a lot before he even opened his mouth to say anything. So we're very different. I think I'm more my mother's outgoing personality than my dad. My dad was he was a really good. Guy, and it's funny, you realize the longer he's been gone, the more right he was in everything. I used to disagree with him on so many things.
He knew even then.
He did, and I disagree. We got along very well, but we were totally different personality and like.
What do you think he would think about his son having his own radio show?
Well, he also liked to be under the radar. He didn't like to have any limelight, or I think that would. I don't know.
Would he listen?
Proud deep inside. Excuse me?
Would he listen to your show?
Oh, he would listen. Because he watched me doing shows with you, like when he was still alive.
And the radio show is basically an extension of the generations of the antidote.
It's called Breaking Bread, so, But he just felt, you make a good product, people will come, people will buy it.
And where do people find your radio show? Well, you're a part of the iHeartRadio broadcast network.
Like you, Billy. I like that. I'm on 2 stations. I'm on WRKO Saturday afternoons, 2 p.m., 6:80 a.m. WRKO. Mm-hmm. And then again Sunday morning on 5:80 a.m. WTAG in Worcester. Then it goes in a podcast so people can later that week.
I'm going to guess.
Okay, so who asked me, Justin, how are you doing? Hope you're not scarred for life, Justin. The dark green, is it the dark green on your spectrum graph? Yes, there's different shades of green. Strongest impulses in that spectrum are in light green. And of course, all the reds are the peaks. So unless you're looking on a big screen, I don't know if you'll be able to read the frequencies. Frequencies are all here on these green bars that are coming up. So you can see all the different frequencies in different parts of the spectrum. All right, so this is all from right here. This is all low end right here. From about 160, 180 hertz. And then you got the low mid coming up into the 200s, 300s, pushing 400 right here. This is all low mid. And then you've got the mid range right in here. Right, around 500 hertz, let's say 400 to 800. Then you got the upper mid from like 800 to like through the 1 kilohertz range, 2 kilohertz. 2 kilohertz, you get into, I call it the pans clanging together. If you were to just take 2 kilohertz and spike it, it would be the same thing as taking 2 pan lids from the kitchen and banging them together. So that's the upper mid, pretty brutal area. And once you hit about 3 which is right in here, you get to about 3.5. That's where things start to go silky on you. And then it just gets silky and silkier once you get out to 5, 6 kilohertz. 8 kilohertz, very, very silky. And of course, out to 10 kilohertz, that's just pure silk, right? I'm talking about the S's. Now, I'm approaching this from people who know nothing about you would not believe the emails I get from people still to this day. They just haven't taken the time to learn the audio spectrum. And it's very important. If you're going to do this, take some time and learn what all the different parts of the audio spectrum are responsible for in regards to how your ear perceives everything from bass, presence, vocal presence, to articulation, to sibilance, all of that stuff. Learn all those frequencies. It'll help you a lot. Otherwise, you'd just be, you're shooting blanks. You're shooting in the dark, man. That's the very first thing you got to do is you have to learn that. And it's not hard to learn. You can get all that information online. Okay, so we're just going to roll just a little tiny bit more.
Your son Jared handles the podcast and all of that.
Yeah, it's beyond me.
But you kind of partner with the Whitleys,
with
right?
Whitley, who is a great guy.
One of the nicest guys on the planet.
He really is, and speaks highly of you all the time. But Wicked Bites.
Well, Pat Whitley
is the godfather.
None of us would be doing food radio or food.
Okay, so you can tell that these guys they're about an octave above where I am. They're nowhere near as low as my voice is. You can tell just by listening to them. But that's okay. Because I really wasn't so much focused on that. I'm focused on the type of sound it is, right? So I'm going to go over to another clip here. Let me check. I'm going to mute this and make sure it's the right clip because I've got 3. I may have the wrong clip. Yep. That's the wrong clip. Okay. So this clip is what you're seeing on the bottom is the captured RF on a vertical end fed out on the southeast corner of the property of being picked up by an RSP duo running SDR Uno. Okay. This is on the bottom. This is the actual RF that's coming out of the radio. Now, you're not going to hear the RF as I talk because of the carrier situation. It's just really horrific. It's bad because of the proximity of the antenna, the RX to TX antenna. It's like this. Blah. I mean, it's pretty bad. And even at very, very low power, I tried to. I rolled the power back so much that the audio almost disappeared. I think there was maybe a milliwatt, if that, going out, half a milliwatt. And it was picking it up, but it wasn't nearly strong enough. So what I was looking for mostly was the spectrum analysis. I wanted to see, by making some changes, what happened to my audio. And I think you're going to be quite intrigued. Remember what that spectrum looked like on those guys yapping on the AM broadcast station. Okay, remember that? Now pay attention to this. This kind of issue. This didn't take me long. It's not done. I think it's still a tad bit heavy, but my voice is heavy anyways. I have a different voice, so I'm trying to strike a very, very nice balance. So here we go. Let's unmute this, and we'll run. Here we go. Okay, this is a test of 10 kilohertz AM modified and a re-EQ. This is the Fritcher spectrum analyzer, and we're looking across the spectrum. I was way too heavy in the bottom end, and so I brought that down. So if we look at the audio spectrum, this is right here. This is a corrective EQ, and this is being captured. This is actually the RF being spit out of the sun through a dummy load and being picked up on the diversity antenna out front on an RSP duo running an RSP duo running SDR Uno. And what we have here is a corrected EQ curve. What I'm looking for is more broadcast quality, more of a flatter response. Ignore the 125 hertz steady. This is a carrier that is what happens because of proximity effect between the RX and the TX antenna. Okay, so what we can see here, here's the 5 kilohertz, what I'm pushing out through. If we look at the top end, tango, we're up about to the minus 25 dB line, minus 20. So if we look across the spectrum, I had to put a big bump around right here, which is around 1 kilohertz, and because this was very, very low, and I have a very low voice, and you can see that I am getting some energy now in this area. Down here, I was extremely heavy, way down in here, and there's no reason. On AM, you never hear people with audio this low. I used a clip that I really like. I like the sound of it. So I'm kind of trying to emulate that audio profile from that AM broadcast station. So you can see, yes, there's audio around 90, 100 hertz, 80 hertz, 70 hertz, but I do have a roll-off starting at 70 hertz. So, and if you look here on the filters, I have the high passes at 70 hertz, low passes at 10 kilohertz. I may be still a touch heavy, but if I look at the energy level, I don't hear any of that big bottom end rumbling, which is good. It does sound like my voice. And if I look across the spectrum here, I've got another bump around 500 hertz. So Tango, Papa, Papa, Tango. Let's check the top end, the Sierra, Sierra, Sierra. Tons of top end, maybe a little too hot. So if we look down here, we're running about minus 30, minus 25 to minus 30 dB on the bottom end. And audio, 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 audio. So the 1 kilohertz area is up around minus 35, sometimes pushing minus 30 dB. That's good. 450, 500 hertz. Oop, there we go. We're up around minus 28, minus 30 to minus 25 dB. So that's good. That's good. She is pretty much level across here. And you can see by the waveform here on the spectrum how flat it is. It looks really good. It may be a little heavy right in here. You can see some heaviness, but it's not bad. It's not bad. So I think we're going to go with it. All right, here's a quick demo using a spectrum analyzer with some corrective EQ and high and low pass filters. Okay, so that's basically it. Just wanted to show you guys that. For the guys that are going to venture into AM and that follow the channel, something to consider when you're trying to set things up, and it's all, me, I try to approach everything from what the average person has in their arsenal. I'm not going to get freaking crazy over AM. So all you freaking buttholes that want to get in there and say, oh, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, cram it in your wazoo, okay? Not interested. I ain't buying anything. If anything, I'm going to sell stuff. I'm just doing this so that whatever you may have, what was the box the guy Jerry was running? I can't remember. Good Lord. What is that? There's a couple boxes. There's the IHY box, and then there's the Ukrainian box. He's running the Ukrainian box. I can tell you that's what he was running. If that's all you got, you do not need any kind of an exciter. My EQ, I should take the camera off. My EQ is completely bypassed. I don't even use a 31 band EQ. Don't need it on AM. I am running the 204, but I'm going to start playing with the audio without running the 204. I found the EQ causes more trouble than it's worth. If you got a good microphone and you got a good clean audio path, that's the most important thing right out of the gate. Nice and clean, decent microphone. If you're going to spend your money on anything, I've been down this road before, get yourself a decent microphone. You don't need a $500 microphone. You don't even need a $300 microphone. Just get some kind of a decent microphone. Don't run a $20 crap can. If you want to play this game, don't do it. Because this AM, this is like, kind of from, excuse. I got such a bad tickle in my throat. I'm sorry, guys. Horrible. So I got to cut this short. It's late, and I've been talking a lot today, and my voice is trashed. So, anyways, take it for what it's worth. What can you do with what you got? That's kind of what I'm looking at. Now, that being said, I lit up the 7300. Here's something interesting. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to say this right now. The 7300, the ICOM, has, in my opinion, terrible audio on AM. And you know me, this is kind of what I like playing with, this stuff. So I tried playing with that for a little while. It drives hard, believe it or not. That running on the PW1 will easily on a 75 watt, it'll put out a 75 watt carrier through the amplifier. And I'm telling you, it will, under modulation, that amplifier will spit out 500 to 800 watts all day long with that 7300. But here's the catch with the ICOM, because I really wanted to use that, even at like 2.9 kilohertz per side, which is what it is. So it's like just under 6 kilohertz wide, right? 5.8 kilohertz, I think, right? Something like that. What I found was to get the audio smooth. In other words, you have some nice bottom end. It had no bottom end to it. So I listened to it through the dingle dongle. So I started playing with it. And the more I pushed the audio, here's what happened. It overmodded very easily. So I had to run the USB mod level down around 35-40%. Made sure I wasn't clipping anything. And I tried to force feed some bottom end in there just to get it to sound so it's not so brittle. Because that 2 to 3 kilohertz area is a pretty brutal area. It's very brittle, very garish. Right? And you're never going to get the silk out of it. You're just not, because it doesn't go far enough in the bandwidth. It doesn't go above 3 kilohertz to get into that region. So, but I kind of wanted to play the sideband game, see if I could trick it, by removing energy in some places, boosting energy in others, like in the 2.5 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, pull some energy out at 2 kilohertz, maybe pull a little energy out at the 800 hertz, which is like that honky, hollow sounding stuff, which creates a sound that in a 3 kilohertz bandwidth makes it sound like it's actually running at 4K, right? Especially for people who don't know audio, which not a lot of people really do. That's what I'm finding out. They don't. That's not a bad thing. It's just that they haven't learned it yet. The manipulation part of it, right? I played this game since I was 17 years old. I'm not a I shouldn't say that I would. I ran a professional recording studio for 15 years. So I'm not completely stupid, but I'm still fascinated by the audio when it comes to putting an audio through an HF transceiver, because these transceivers are not studio equipment. They're not. None of them are. Not even an Anon. You can't compare an Anon or even the top end $12,000 or $13,000 ICOM to a $100,000 mixing console. Sorry. Good luck with that. So when I tried to push the audio in the ICOM to get enough bottom end in there, all of my modulation just went away. I could see it, and I could see the modulation in ratio to peak carrier. And without pushing a lot of bottom end or trying to force the audio, it had tremendous swing to it. Tremendous. It was awesome. No clipping. But the minute I tried to press it, I would never have caught this. And I think a lot of people make this mistake, because I've heard a lot of people on AM just in the past 2 weeks that are way overmodulated. And it's very easy to do on these race burners. Really easy to do. You have to be able to monitor it via RF, either through a WebSDR or something, because you can push it really easy over the top. That's what I found. I didn't know that before, but you can make an awful mess out of it. So, do they work? Yeah, they work pretty good, but don't try to do too much with the audio, because what I found was the more I pushed it, the more I had to drop the USB mod level to keep it from overmodding, and then I lost the drive under modulation. An AM expert could probably explain that to me, why that happens with rice burners. Now, the SDR, it does not happen. I have to be very careful because I'll blow the freaking amplifier up. I keep my modulation. I try to keep the mic gain down around -10. You know, it's plenty. You don't need to push it up to 0 dB. No reason to. Not on this radio. So a lot of stuff to learn, you know, and as I move along in this process, I'm going to just share my experiences. I always say mileage may vary. That's all I got. It's kind of cool, though. It's cool. It's a different approach to audio. I kind of like it. To be honest with you, AM is very close to studio work. When you're recording someone, you don't record someone, even if they're a baritone, you don't record them to make them sound like voodoo audio. You don't do that. You make them sound exactly the way they are and apply some control effects, some dynamic gear, plugins, whatever you're using, and some room ambience, maybe some de-essers, stuff like that, but you don't make them sound like voodoo. So if you think about it, if you approach AM audio from a studio standpoint, it's basically what it is when you think about it. It's unadulterated, pure audio. Kind of cool. Here we go. Camera TS590. Oh, the BKW. The BKW is an interesting antenna, and I'll end it with this because I got to go. I'm tired. The BKW is interesting because I suspect that it's actually a little deaf. And the reason why I say that is because the mini BKW I had up was the same way. And it was a miniature BKW. 39.1 feet of ladder line. I had on it 11.9 feet per leg. Covered 17 through 10 meters. Actually did 6, but it wouldn't tune on the amp on 6. This does. The actual full-size BKW does. So the teeth this thing has is unbelievable. What I'm trying to figure out is I need to do some experimentation with a vertical end fed out there because that thing is a hot antenna on 40 and up. It hears awesome. I suspect it may hear even better. So I may be employing that on a separate SDR just to listen. I haven't compared them yet though, but that's what my gut tells me. The teeth it has is insane. Good antenna. It's not going, let me just tell you, it's not going anywhere. I get absolutely banging reports on this thing. 25 over into Western and Eastern Europe, no problem on this antenna. Of course, it's path dependent. Some places I'm really weak, but that's the way it always is. Doesn't matter what antenna I'm on. But this thing's got a lot of balls. It's got a lot of teeth. Not a lot of power, anywhere from 300 to 400 watts, maybe 500 sometimes. Oh yeah, 25 over into Europe. Shoot, I was 25 over into Florida today on AM on this thing on about 300. That's pretty freaking good, you know, from where I am. It's a good antenna, but I think the receive is a little low, just to answer that question. So that's about it. I will catch you guys later. Have a good evening.